Welcome back, everybody, to the next episode of the podcast, episode 15, part 2. We've got more NFL predictions today, and we're going to be talking about some of the other sports as well. As always, I'm joined by my great pal, Nickinator. If you want to say hi.
Not much to say. It's been way too long. It's been almost a month now, I feel, and I am just ready to be going at it again.
So in the last episode, we wrapped up our NFL predictions, and we went through our full season predictions, going over who we think is going to make the playoffs, win the Super Bowl, and all of the awards. Today, we're going to go over some breakout candidates along with our college football predictions. We're going to be talking about the MLB again, and we're going to have a fun and game segment at the end. So without further ado, let's get started. Both of us have written down 5 players who we believe are going to break out this NFL season. We are not including rookies because both of us think that calling breakout players as rookies is stupid because they're rookies. They've never played. So I'll go first, and I wanted to put a quarterback on the list. There were a few guys I thought about. Sam Howell, I think, is going to potentially surprise some people in Washington. There were some other young players I considered, but as much as I hate to say it, I am a believer in Jordan Love. I think the guy is a really talented player. He has shown the signs of improvement in the limited opportunities he's had, and I think the Packers' offensive weapons are better than people give credit for. The next player on my list is a guy who I was very high on coming out of Georgia. He's going to have a big role this year, and I think he is going to really impress people, and that's James Cook with the Buffalo Bills. I was higher on James Cook than anybody. I had him pretty much in the same tier as a prospect as Kenneth Walker. Maybe I was wrong there. I might have jumped the gun, but I do genuinely believe that James Cook is a talented player. A lot of people seem to think that he doesn't have the size to be an every down runner, and I get the concern there, but I think he's going to be able to carry a bigger load, than everybody else is going to think. At wide receiver, there were a few guys I thought about. I wanted to put Jerry Jeudy. I think he has the ability to surprise some people this year, but he has the hamstring injury, so I didn't really feel comfortable with it. We're going to go with a different former first-round receiver, and that's Rashad Bateman with the Baltimore Ravens. I was very high on Bateman coming out of Minnesota. He's had a hard time staying healthy, and when he has been healthy, he hasn't been all that good. But now there's going to be less attention on him in the passing game with the additions of Zay Flowers and Odell Beckham. The Ravens system is going to be a lot more pass-friendly. So I think Rashad Bateman, if he stays healthy, which is a major if, I think he could be quite good. My last 2 players are both in the secondary. We're going to start with Asante Samuel Jr. with the Los Angeles Chargers. We saw his big ability in the playoff game. He had multiple interceptions against Trevor Lawrence. I think he's going to continue to get better as a cover corner, and I think he could have a really good season. And then my last player, I feel like this one's a little bit too obvious, but I included him anyway. It's Daxton Hill with the Cincinnati Bengals. I was very high on Dax Hill coming out of Michigan. He didn't play a ton last year, and that was kind of to be expected, but with Jesse Bates gone, he's going to slide into that free safety position, and I don't think the Bengals are going to really miss a beat with him there instead of Jesse Bates.
When I go through and look at breakout candidates, I try to avoid players that are going into their sophomore year because you kind of expect players after their rookie year to take that next step up. They're used to the training camp. They're used to playing the regular season. Now they're going to be able to adjust and become better. But I still put a couple of sophomores in here because they're kind of obvious. Like you, I did want to have a QB in there. I did think about Jordan Love. I made a breakout player for every team, and Jordan Love was my guy for the Packers, but I'm not going to talk about him. I am going to talk about Mr. Kenny, quote-unquote, Hemi Pickett. I am big fan of the Steelers at this point. The past week or so, I have been looking at Steelers, and I have been, wow, this is honestly, I think he's going to be phenomenal. There was reports that he was looking at every incompletion that he threw last year, preseason, regular season, whatever. And this year, at least in the preseason, he's been really good. The last game he played, I think he had 2 incompletions and had 5 touchdowns in 5 drives, which is really good. I think the skill position players are better than people think. It's just the offense coordinator is not very good. And then the other sophomore I want to mention is another wide receiver. There's a lot of guys you could throw into here. You could throw Joshua Dodson. You could throw Garrett Wilson. I am going to throw Alec Pierce into the mix. I think with Shane Steichen being that head coach, he's going to want to look for kind of get up and get him. I think he has Michael Pittman to be almost like his A.J. Brown in this offense with Andrew Richardson. But I think Alec Pierce is going to kind of take the next step up. He showed a lot of promise last year with not very good QB play. And I know Richardson isn't the most talented passer, but I think if he can get the ball to Alec Pierce is going to come down with it almost every time. I think he's got some of the best hands, and I don't want to say in the league, but some of the best young hands in the league, we'll say. And I think he could kind of help Anthony Richardson adjust to the NFL level and kind of be what he needs to be. And then one other receiver I want to mention, one of my guys, I think he's also one of your guys as well, kind of in that Jerry Jeudy in a sense. I want to throw this guy into that loop. I have this weird thing where Amon St. Brown, Devontae Smith, Jalen Waddle, and T. Higgins, I always throw into the same group. I did a top 100. I put all four of them back to back because to me they're all equally talented and they're all from the same draft. This guy isn't the same draft. He's 1 year before. Brandon Ayuk is phenomenal at the game of football. I think as a pure receiver, he is better than Deebo Samuel. I think he is fantastic. I would put him in the loops of Devontae Smith, of Jalen Waddle, T. Higgins, Amon St. Brown, who all four of those guys are elite. I think Brandon Ayuk is right there with them, and I think if Brock Purdy plays like he did last year and is healthy, I think Brandon Ayuk is going to go for 1,300 yards, and he's going to be better than Deebo was because last year he was better than Deebo. I know Deebo was hurt, but Ayuk was a lot better than Deebo. He was the best target besides like CMC and checkdowns. One other guy who has played in the league a couple years now, Marcus Davenport. This is an oddball pick. After leaving the Saints, not playing very well, he goes to the Minnesota Vikings, and you have Brian, what's his name? I forgot his name. The new defense coordinator. I think this team is going to be a lot better on defense. I think Davenport is going to help this team out. You have Danielle Hunter on the other side of him. I think Davenport's going to come off the other edge and get some sacks and actually do what he needs to do. And one guy who I'm glad you didn't name because I wanted to name him, another, I believe, a sophomore, cornerback Jerry Jacobs. I think in a fairly loaded secondary, he's slotted in as one of the starting corners alongside Cam Sutton, and I think he's going to be really good at that role. I think Cam Sutton's probably going to play a lot of slot corner. They'll probably have Branch over there as well. But I think Jerry Jacobs is going to be one of the outside corners. He's going to be phenomenal at that job.
I love the Jerry Jacobs pick. You, my friend, no ball. Let's move over to our college football predictions. We're going to pick the 4 teams who we think are going to make the college football playoff, and then who we have winning the national championship. So I feel like this college football season could be weird because I feel I'm not as sold on a lot of these top teams as others. With my number 1 spot, I don't feel great about this, but I'm going to go with the Michigan Wolverines out of the Big Ten, the only Big Ten team I have making the playoff. I thought about Ohio State. They have plenty of talent. I think Penn State could be really good as well. The backfield of Drew Aller and Nick Singleton could be really good. They've also got multiple potential first-rounders on defense with Kalen King and Chop Robinson. But I think this could be Michigan's year. If J.J. McCarthy takes another leap up, they've got the best running back tandem by far in the country with Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards. I think they've got great line play. They've got good players in the secondary. Will Johnson at cornerback, I believe he's currently a sophomore. Get familiar with the name, kids. He's going to be very, very good. At number 2, I can't leave Georgia off the list. I don't feel great about them. It sounds like they're going to have Carson Beck as their starting quarterback. I think losing Stetson Bennett's going to be a bigger deal than people realize, but I think they're just too talented to leave off. Number 3, this is probably my biggest hot take here. Florida State's getting all the love in the ACC, and I get it. Jordan Travis is really, really good, but I feel like people are sleeping on Clemson. The Tigers have not been all that good, at least for their standards, since Trevor Lawrence left. DJ Uiagalelei was a disappointment, although I still believe in him at Oregon State. It did not work out there, and that really affected this Clemson team, but I think they're going to be back. Cade Klubnik, superbly talented player. They've got Will Shipley at running back. He's a legitimate Heisman contender on that offense. And then I like some of the players they have on defense. They had the kid, I think his last name is Carter, as their pass rusher. Jeremiah Trotter Jr. is a good linebacker. Yeah, Barrett Carter is his name. He's going to be good. Nate Wiggins at corner. He's going to be good as well. And then number 4 might be hot takey again, but I think this is the type of year where Notre Dame wins like 11 games. Sam Hartman's the best quarterback they've had there in quite a while. I think Notre Dame sneaks into the 4 spot and gets blasted in the first round as they always do. I have Michigan and Georgia, the top 2 seeds, winning in the first round of the playoff and in the national championship. I feel like I shouldn't be putting hope into this team, but I've got the Michigan Wolverines knocking off the Georgia Dynasty and winning the national championship.
Before I say my teams, I don't watch college football. I want to get into it, but I don't watch it. So I might even pick 4 teams that, hell, they might not even all be able to make it simultaneously because I don't know the rules. As the 1 seed, I am going to go with the Bulldogs because they're the Bulldogs. I know Carson Beck isn't the most well-received quarterback from what I've heard, but it's still the Bulldogs. I don't want to leave them off. Number 2, I am just going to go Ohio State. I think it's Ohio State. I think you could throw, I don't want to say almost any, but a lot of quarterbacks in, and they'll be able to throw out enough talent, and you'll win enough games to make playoffs. Number 3, I don't know if this is weird or not, but I am just going to throw USC out there. Caleb Williams. They almost made it last year. I'm just going to presume they'll go out. Caleb Williams will be him, and they'll win some games. And I want it to be weird. I put Texas in. Why? I don't know, quite frankly. Looking at players that I know, Quinn Ewers is pretty good, and Xavier Worthy, I think his name is a really good receiver. That's my only reason. I picked 3 teams I know are already good, and I think Texas is a good oddball choice to pick. I am just going to go with the Bulldogs winning it, probably against, we'll say against Bama. We'll say Georgia goes against Bama, and Georgia wins. But again, I don't watch college football. I don't know how things work. I don't know how things are going to play. Hell, I didn't know if it was still 4 teams or not when I asked Octi if we should do this for this episode. But I'm going to be basic. I'm going to stay good. We're going to go with Georgia. Maybe Texas can do something.
I'm excited for you to join the Texas fans in the land of disappointing expectations because picking Texas to make the playoff this year is not that uncommon. I've seen a lot of people do it, but knowing Texas, they're going to fall flat on their face, and it's going to be hilarious. We did not have picking the Heisman winner on our thing, so I hate to throw a curveball at you, but I wouldn't mind doing that. So my pick, there's a few good options here. I think some sleepers, Marvin Harrison Jr. at plus 2,500 and Blake Corum at plus 4,000. I think those 2 guys are going to have unbelievable seasons, and why not get crazy? I'm going to pick Blake Corum to win the Heisman Trophy. I'm going to be all on Michigan this year. I think this is their year. I think Blake Corum is going to be the best player in the country, and he could cement himself as the top running back off the board next season.
All right, so looking at the first school of the odds for Heisman, I know off the top of my head, obviously, Caleb Williams is a good pick. I could go elsewhere, and because I have Texas making it, I'm just going to say Quinn Ewers, because why not? I'm not a Texas fan. I just got really addicted to Texas because I had a QB go there for Octi's series that he did, and that's the only reason I actually kind of like Texas. I wouldn't say that I'm a Texas fan, but I will keep my eye on them. If they're good, then I'll be a fan, but if not, then we'll see. It's probably going to be Caleb Williams again, or just Marvin Harrison Jr., because he's really good at football. He's going to be probably a top 5 pick whenever he declares. And I don't want him to go to a team like the Commanders or the Giants, because then I would be really sad. I'd cry.
Okay, so those are our college football predictions for the season. I cannot wait to see Oregon fall on their face in a game that they should win in the month of November to lose and not make the playoffs. Let's now focus on the MLB season. We are wrapping up the month of August, which means we've only got 1 more month to go, and the playoff race is on. The MLB playoff race is now in full force. There have been a lot of really fun races. The most interesting one to me has to be the AL West. The Seattle Mariners have been on fire as of recent. Julio Rodriguez in the month of August has basically been Barry Bonds, reincarnated. The guy has been unbelievable this month. And the Mariners, who looked like they had no shot to win the division, I think they were 8 games behind the Rangers a week and a half ago. And now they're in first place. An unbelievable stretch by the Mariners and an impressive choke equally from the Texas Rangers. As for the American League wild card race, there are quite a few teams in the mix. There aren't really any clear division winners in the AL because the AL East is super tight, the AL West is super tight. So I think we generally know which teams are going to be in contention, but it's just a matter of who really wins those divisions. As of right now, the Blue Jays are really the only big threat who is outside looking in. So I really think the AL playoff picture comes down to 7 teams, unless somebody like Boston gets hot. And then in the National League, the big story this month, in my opinion, has been the Los Angeles Dodgers. Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman have catapulted themselves into the NL MVP discussion with Ronald Acuna. I think the NL MVP race is going to be super exciting the final month of the year. And I think those two teams very clearly probably are just the two best teams in baseball, let alone in the National League. The NL Central should be tight. The Brewers have been playing really well. They seem like the team to beat. The Cubs and Reds are certainly still in the mix. As for the wild card, I think the Phillies are in a comfortable spot. And then after that, you've got quite a few teams within just a few games of each other, with the Cubs, Diamondbacks, and Giants all within a game of each other. The Reds and Marlins aren't too far back either. And my heart wants to keep hope in San Diego, even though I know that's wrong and the Padres are not good. But there's a small part of me that wants to keep believing in them.
Looking at a few of the teams that you mentioned, the Seattle Mariners are obviously really good. They've picked up the pace, and they're doing things that we haven't seen in about 2 years when the Cardinals went on that, 17-game win streak to make the playoffs. But I want to talk about the Rangers because they have been atrocious the past month. We haven't done an episode about a month. When we last did an episode, the Rangers were by far and away probably the second best team in the American League behind Baltimore. Now they're the second team in the wild card division. Not division, but you get it. They've been not good at all. I think the pitching has been fine. I think the offense has kind of been what's struggling so far. Houston hasn't been as good either, but they've been kind of more consistent, more steady with what they need to be doing. But with Seattle going on a crazy winning streak, this division is going to be quite close. The Rays, after going on an abysmal month of June or July, they've picked it up more, are right behind the Baltimore. But it's the Baltimore Orioles. They're really good right now, and I don't believe they're going to fall off unless they have a terrible collapse. Like you mentioned, Toronto is the only team looking out that's actually close. They're only 2.5 games back. But I think there could be a couple teams that actually do something that could maybe make a shot, kind of like what I mentioned with the Cardinals a few years back. Boston's probably the most likely to do that, but I could see a team like the Guardians coming up and swooping the division from the Twins because it's the AL Central, and they're really bad. But the NL Central, I do want to mention, the Phillies, they've been phenomenal. They have set a record for home runs set in a month for the team in franchise history, and the month isn't even over yet. Trey Turner has returned to being a phenomenal player. Bryce Harper has learned how to hit home runs again. I think he had 5 in a week at one point. And this team as a whole has been phenomenal. The Cubs haven't picked it up, and they're above 500. The Diamondbacks, after going on a 10-game losing streak, are a little above 500. They're in the wild card right now. But with how close teams like San Fran and Cincy and Miami are, I don't know if they'll actually make it after both you and me hyping them up. Milwaukee has gone on a 9-game win streak, and they've been phenomenal the past couple weeks. But it's the NL Central, so anything can happen. The Dodgers are really good. They're the Dodgers. The Braves, I think between them and the next best run differential is about 70 or so. So that's fun to look at. But I think most of the wild cards are more or less set unless some kind of teams go on some crazy run.
So with that, we will now transition into our fun and game segment. We've got more top 10 rankings today, as we'll be going over our top 10 offensive tackles, centers in basketball, and second baseman. So we're going to start by ranking our top 10 offensive tackles. These can be left or right tackles. Number 1, I have Trent Williams. Pretty self-explanatory. I don't think Trent Williams is as comfortable at this top spot that everybody kind of thinks. But I do think he is the best tackle in the game. Number 2, we've got Lane Johnson with the Eagles. The guy seems to get better with age. He was playing through the groin injury last year. He's really, really good. Everybody seems to know that, though, but I don't think everybody knows how good Laramie Tunsil is with the Houston Texans. If he was anywhere else, he would be respected as a top 3 tackle in the league. That's just not the case, and, well, he should be ranked this high. He's that good. Number 4, I've got Andrew Thomas with the New York Giants. Quite the 180 he made after a rough start to his career. Now one of the best young players at the position. Number 5, I'm going to go with David Bakhtiari with the Green Bay Packers. Health has been the issue with him, but when he's healthy, he is still really good. Number 6, I have Tristan Wirfs, maybe a little bit lower than consensus, but he is a very good player. Number 7, Colton Miller with the Raiders has consistently gotten better and better and better throughout his career. This was a guy who was pretty raw coming out, super athletic, and he has just continued to improve at a steady rate. Number 8, this might be a little bit of a projection, but I think we see another leap this year out of Penei Sewell with the Lions. He was very good last season, and I think he's going to be even better this year. Now, you can make the argument that last year Sewell was not the best tackle in his class because of the year that Christian Darrisaw had. I have him coming in 9th place. Christian Darrisaw is a total stud. That trade back that the Vikings made to get him is one of the more underrated moves in draft memory recently, even if all the players they got in the trade back stink. Christian Darrisaw himself is very good. And then at number 10, there's a few guys I thought about. Some recently injured players like Tyron Smith, Ronnie Stanley, and Rashawn Slater were all guys I thought about. I think there's another name or two who isn't coming up at the top of my head. But I'm going to go with Jordan Mailata, another guy who is very raw coming out, even more raw than Colton Miller because he didn't even play football coming out. But he is an athletic freak, and he has continued to get better and better and better. I have him coming in at the 10th spot.
At number 1, I am right side with you. I have Trent Williams. Like you said, I don't think it's as comfortable as a lead anymore. I think him and number 2, Lane Johnson, are in the exact same tier. I think Trent Williams is probably the best left tackle we've seen in probably the past 10 years, and Lane Johnson is probably the best right tackle we've seen about the past 10 years. The guy that comes to mind is probably Joe Thomas, but I'm going to pretend that he is retired, so it doesn't count. Number 3, I am right beside with you. I was sad when you mentioned his name. Laramie Tunsil is phenomenal at the game of football. He is the highest paid tackle, I believe, currently, and well-deserved so. He's easily one of the best tackles. People like to ditch on the Texans for trading so many picks for him, and maybe it wasn't that good of a deal, but he's really good at football. Number 4, I have Tristan Wirfs. He is probably the only guy I will throw in alongside Lane Johnson at that right tackle spot that is really good. I think the rest of these guys are all left tackles, but Tristan Wirfs is phenomenal. Number 5, this might be a little bit of bias, but at first I didn't have him on this list, and I looked more into it and more into it. Jordan Mailata is really good at football. The fact that he did not play football when he got drafted and played rugby is hilarious. When I heard we were going to make him a tackle, I was so mad. I wanted to make him a fullback. I wanted to make him our power back, put him in the goal line. He's going to get 4 yards and get a touchdown every time. He's going to get 20 rushing touchdowns. No, he just became a top 10 offensive tackle. Number 6, I have Andrew Thomas. I'm a little lower on him than a lot of people, but I still think he's really good at football. I'm a little sad that he actually became good. I just hope that doesn't happen with Evan Neal because I don't want the Giants to be good. Number 7, I have Ryan Ramczyk. I think he's one of the guys that you might have forgotten with the injury thing, but I think he's really good at football, and he's gotten more and more healthy lately. So I think he's good. Number 8, I don't think it's a projection at all. I think Penei Sewell is that guy. I think he is really good at football. The Lions, when they had all those pass catchers get off the board, you had an elite tiered offensive tackle just fall into your lap. You take that, and you get your tackle of the future. And number 9, again, I am right there with you. Christian Darrisaw is a very good football player. He knows what he's doing in the run game, in the pass game. And that you mentioned the trade down. A lot of it didn't end up well for them, but Christian Darrisaw is still really good. Number 10, there's a couple players I thought of. Orlando Brown, Torn Armstead, David Bakhtiari. But I am going to go with Rashawn Slater. I know he was hurt last year, but I think that first year he looked really good. And I think he is going to be a top 10 tackle when he's healthy this year. I have mentioned that I think Justin Herbert is going to be very good this year. I think getting Rashawn Slater back is going to be one of those key pieces that helps Justin Herbert be a top 5 QB.
Now let's move over to our top 10 centers in the NBA. It's hard not to go chalk at the beginning. Nikola Jokic at 1. He's the best player in the world right now. Joel Embiid at 2, reigning MVP. Number 3, I've got Anthony Davis. When healthy, he's still very impactful, especially on the defensive end of the floor. There was a big difference last year, especially in the playoffs, when AD was on and off defensively. And offensively, he's still an asset as well. Number 4, I have Domantas Sabonis with the Sacramento Kings. Flashback to that one episode a couple months ago where I just completely forgot who he was for Lord knows what reason. But Domantas Sabonis is really good. He was getting legit MVP votes last year. He's probably the second best passing big man in the league other than Joker. Defensively, he's not as good as some of these guys, but he's a good scorer, very good offensive player. Number 5, we've got Bam Adebayo, a very well-rounded player for the Miami Heat. I think some people kind of give him a bad rap because he kind of has that inability to take over offensively, but he's a pretty good passer, and defensively, he's obviously really good. Number 6, I feel like this player has become very underrated over the last few years. When healthy, Kristaps Porzingis is really good. And I think part of the reason why he's underrated is because at the start of his career, he was really, really good. And then he kind of disappointed after those injuries with the Knicks. And he's come back to playing really well, and people just don't really seem to give him credit. Number 7, I don't feel fully comfortable with this. I'm going to put Rudy Gobert here. I don't feel great about it, but defensively, he is still really, really solid. Number 8, I've got Nikola Vucevic. I feel like he's still underrated, even if defensively he's not the best. He's a good offensive player, good scorer. Number 9, one of the more underrated young players in the league. I don't think enough people give Alperen Şengün enough credit. He's another phenomenal passing big man. He's improving as a scorer. He's improving as a defender. He's one of the best pieces that the Rockets have. And then number 10, a guy who is in trade rumors just about every day, it feels like, for the last 5 years, but is just really solid, is Miles Turner. He can stretch the floor. He's one of the better shooting bigs in the league, and he's an underrated defensive player as well. Some other guys I thought about here include DeAndre Ayton, but my stock is lower on him, as it is with everybody else. Robert Williams was considered. I know there's another name who I wrote down who is not coming up to mind, but yeah, there was another player in there who I thought about for this list as well. And then I think in a year from now, we could maybe see Walker Kessler or Jalen Duren in this conversation as well. I think we could also see Victor Wembanyama here in a very short time.
When you talk about NBA centers, I think the first 4 should be the same regardless of who you are, unless you're biased. Number 1, Nikola Jokic, obviously. Number 2, without a doubt, Joel Embiid. People don't like that he got an MVP. He got his now, so now the next 4 MVPs can just be Jokic or Giannis. Number 3, I'm right there with you, Anthony Davis. Phenomenal offensively, phenomenal defensively. Like you mentioned, when he's not on the court, there's a big difference in the defensive side for the Lakers, and he proves it. Number 4 is Domantas Sabonis. You might have forgotten about him. I didn't. He is phenomenal at what he does. Like you said, he's not that good defensively, but offensively he is phenomenal. Number 5, I am right there with you with Kristaps Porzingis. I think he is really good. I think the Celtics got a steal. They pretty much got him in a first for Marcus Smart in a second. Like, that's ridiculous. Number 6, this might be a bit bad, but blame me and my dumb side of not knowing the NBA. Clint Capella. I think Clint is very good at basketball. I think from looking at stats, because that's all I got. But I think even though he's aging, I still think he's fairly good at what he does and what he needs to do for this Hawks team. He's on, the Hawks. Make sure I check that. Number 7 is Bam Adebayo. I'm a little lower on him. I always think he's like 50 years old, but he's like 26. But he's still really good at basketball, Jesus Christ. But he is good at what he does. Number 8, I was kind of hoping you wouldn't say him, Alperen Şengün. He is really good, and he might be one of the best young players that this Rocket team has. And I really like what he's got laying on the table. I think in a couple years from now, he could be in this top half of this top 10 with these older guys kind of starting to age out. Joel Embiid's about to be 30. Anthony Davis is probably 30 by now. Jokic is younger, but we'll see how he progresses. But I think Alperen Şengün could be up there. Number 9, I went with Jakob Poeltl. I know him mainly from the Sonics franchise when he was there for a bit. But looking at stats for real life, I think he's still pretty good. I feel like he gets in a lot of trade rumors a lot, but I think he's still really good at basketball, not football. Number 10, I wasn't sure where to go. I did think about putting Victor here, but he hasn't played yet, so I'm not going to. I went with Rudy Gobert, just because he's still good on defense at least. There's a lot of things that you worry about him, but as a player, I know offensively, not the greatest, but his defense is still pretty damn good.
Clint Capella over Bam Adebayo is certainly one of the takes of all time. I do like Jakob Poeltl there in the top 10. He's a good player. Let's move over to second base now. At the top, it's hard to go against Jose Altuve. When he's been healthy, he's had a very solid year. He does everything for the Astros. He can hit for contact. He can hit for power. He's obviously been the leader of that team over the last 5+ years. And I feel like people are starting to come around to him again after the cheating stuff, which is good because I feel like he's a super likable player. Number 2, I've got Marcus Semien with the Texas Rangers. Last year, he wasn't all that great after he signed the big deal, but this year, he is back, and he is better than ever. Number 3, we've got Ozzy Albies with the Atlanta Braves. I feel like a lot of people thought he was kind of overrated going into the year, and I feel like a lot of those claims were pretty fair, but I think he has put those to bed this season with the way he has hit the ball. Number 4, I've got Luis Ariz with the Miami Marlins. Obviously, he is a phenomenal contact hitter. The rest of his game leaves a lot to be desired, but the guy gets on base at a ridiculous rate. Number 5, I've got one of my guys, Ketel Marte. Similar with Marcus Semien, he was not very good last year after signing his new contract, but he was great again this year. All-star, good to see him back in form. Number 6, we've got Ha-Seong Kim with the Padres, or as I like to call him, Ha-Seong Him. He leads all second basemen in WAR this year, and even though his numbers aren't going to pop off the page, he's very solid. Number 7, I've got your guy, Bryson Stott. He very quietly has had a really good year with the Phillies. He's very high in terms of WAR and batting average as well. Number 8, we've got Gleyber Torres with the Yankees. He's still a superbly talented player, and he's had a fine season this year. Obviously, most of the Yankees have not been so good. Number 9, I have Andres Jimenez with the Cleveland Guardians. He has been a lot worse this year offensively than he was last year, but he still, I think, is in the top 10 in WAR among second basemen. He's still very good defensively, and he's still very young. I think his offense will be just fine. And then number 10, I've got Nolan Gorman with the St. Louis Cardinals. The guy can flat out swing the bat. He still has a lot of work to do, but I think he's going to be one of the better hitters in the game over the next decade.
After this top 4 for second baseman, I feel like a lot of these guys, at least in terms of talent, I feel like they're all fairly similar. But nonetheless, number 1, I'm going to go Marcus Semien. I think even after a disappointing year last year, I think he has shown enough this year that he is ready to kind of take the mantle from guys like Jose Altuve and be the number 1 second baseman in the league. And number 2, I do have Jose Altuve. I think he is phenomenal. I think he's one of the best players, at least at the position, but he's still one of the better players in the league, honestly. I know he's been hurt a lot this year, but when he's been healthy, he's got like a 900 OPS, which is really good. I know it's not as many at-bats as other guys, but that's still really good. Number 3, I do have Ozzy Albies. I think he is. It's the Braves. I think every top 10 list is going to end up having a Brave somewhere on it. It's just a matter of where. And at this point, probably always in the top 5. But nonetheless, Ozzy Albies is really good. And I think if he stops switch hitting finally, then he'll be even better. Number 4, I'm right there with you, Luis Ariz. He doesn't hit power a lot, but he's hitting 350, not 400, but 350 is still really damn good. And then after this, I think a lot of these players are fairly similar in terms of stats and talent and whatnot. Number 5, I am going to go with Ha-Seong Im. I think the WAR shows a lot what he can do for a very disappointing Padres team, and a team that has Fernando Tatis and Manny Machado and Juan Soto. Ha-Seong Kim being the guy with the most WAR is hilarious to me, but I think he's still been really good. Number 6 is Ketel Marte. Like you said, he's been really good. One of your guys. I love him. You love him. He's one of the more underrated guys on the Diamondbacks. I know they haven't been good mostly this year. A lot of the attention has gone to guys like Zach Gallen and Corbin Carroll. And at least the first 2 months, Lourdes Gurriel, even Christian Walker. But Ketel Marte is really good. Number 7, I'm glad I brought you on my side. Bryson Stott is very good at baseball. When you look at least WAR, He's better than a lot of guys you wouldn't expect, like Yanni Diaz or Paul Goldschmidt. It's hilarious to me. It's mostly the defense, but still really funny to me. Bryson Stott has helped this Phillies team the past month into being really good at baseball. Number 8, I'm going to go with Nolan Gorman. I think he's been one of the better position players for this Cardinals team. He's probably the 3rd best player behind Arenado and Goldie. But he's been actually really good. The first few months, he looked really good. Number 9, this might be a bit overestimating, but I'm going to go with Brandon Lau. I think he is still one of the better power bats at his position. I know he doesn't have as many home runs as a lot of these other guys, but I still think he's got what it takes. At number 10, I am going to go with Gleyber Torres. I think in a disappointing Yankees team, I think he's fairly good for their position players besides Aaron Judge. It's Aaron Judge. I did leave a few guys off this list, like Andres Jimenez, and one other guy who I am blanking on. I don't remember who it was, but there was one guy who had a lot of similar stats to Gorman and Lyle and Torres. Don't remember who it was. It bothered me, but I love that guy.
Could it be Thairo Estrada?
As long as Andres Jimenez. Yeah, that's it.
There you go.
But that's it. But there's a lot of guys on the top of this list, and like I said, after that number 4 spot, I feel like they're all very similar. But I do think this is, honestly, second baseman, one of the more underrated positions. They're mostly just shortstops that don't have the arm for shortstop. But they're all still pretty good. I like them.
Okay, so that'll pretty much wrap up the episode. Went through a lot of stuff today, but a fun one nonetheless. If you have any final words before we leave, let them rip.
In my defense, for Clint Capella, I don't know basketball. So that's my defense.
Clint Capella's a quality NBA player. We can say that. So that'll wrap it up. I hope everybody... Yeah, we can call it that. So I hope everybody enjoyed. Make sure to like and subscribe for the next episode, which hopefully will be pretty soon. Peace out.